Okay, thanks for coming back in. So we begin our next session where we have two really interesting talks, like really cutting edge models applied to science. So our first talk was due to be Zach Ulysses. This isn't Zach. Zach was unfortunately taken ill. He has joined us online here, but he was kind enough to find an alternative, and Jagriti was kind enough to step in at the last minute to cover the talk today. And so Jagriti is formerly at Georgia Tech and now at Fair AI, Fundamental AI Research, which is part of Meta, and they have a Fair Chemistry team. They've done lots of cutting edge work. Zach's kind of core member of that team from a start, formerly from CMU. Yeah, they've got a really exciting model. Well, I won't spoil any of the thunder here. So Jagriti, yeah, you're welcome to take it away.
Thanks, Vahid, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. So myself, Jagriti, and I'm joining here from SF, right across the bridge. It's really pretty up here, so I'm happy to be here. I'm a postdoc in the team, joined recently in February, working with Zach and the whole team. And today I'm going to talk about the work we have done recently on the UMA model, the Universal Model for Atoms. So this talk, I'll start with a few introductory slides to give you an introduction of the latest release that we have had, and then I will show you the demo of the tools that we have built, and also, if possible, you can all walk through it with me while I'm showing you the demo. So yeah, the title of this talk is Datasets and AI ML Models for All of Chemistry and Material Science. So we are, so before I start presenting my slides, it would be great if you can go to this link, which is the FairChem website, which has the link to our demo as well as the tutorials. So if you can go open this website on your laptop and just open it in GitHub code basis, it will start loading up while I'm presenting the rest of the slides. So that will make it easier for you to follow along when I'm going through the tutorial. If you have any issues, just raise your hand and we can debug it together. So at FAIR, we are doing AI for science. It's the meta fundamental AI research where we do a lot of open source research. FAIR is committed to open and reproducible research. So we have about everything that we do is open. It's about 1,300 plus GitHub repos. We are specifically focusing on chemistry and material science in our team. That's why our team is called as FAIR Chemistry. And yeah, there is a lot of other cool research that you see here on this slide that you can explore if you're interested in, which is available online. So what we want from our models is ab initio accuracy everywhere. We come from computational chemistry, so we want to simulate these materials using these quantum chemistry tools. And for these tools, we want them to reach ab initio accuracy, which are very expensive calculations, but also highly accurate, so that if you want to synthesize some of these materials experimentally, we would want to know beforehand how would these materials simulate or react with some other materials. So there are a lot of different things that we can utilize these quantum chemistry tools for. One of the very widely used method is the density functional theory, as you've heard about it in the previous talk. We want to do computational chemistry for atom scale design. These quantum chemistry tools is expensive, so you can see this is about 10 to the power 5 CPU seconds per calculation. So it can take up to hours, depending on the system size. It can take hours, days, or weeks to even finish some of these calculations. And what we are trying to do is develop GNNs or train these large GNN models on a very large set of data so that we can reduce the time and also achieve great accuracy with these models. So our current models are about 10 to the power 6 times faster than these computational chemistry tools that are already there. So over the years, Fair Chemistry has released, over the last 5 years, Fair Chemistry has released different data sets. It all started with this OC20 data set, which is a catalysis data set with about 230 million systems. Then the next release was the ODAC, OpenDAC, which where we have a lot of metal organic frameworks. The size of that data set is about 29 million. Then the next release was the Open Materials, or OMAT, which consisted of about 100 million structures. And with our latest release, we are releasing this Open Molecular Crystals dataset, which has about 25 million structures, and the Open Molecules dataset, which has about 105 million structures. And the level of theory we are using for these datasets can vary because the chemistry of these datasets is different, so they would prefer different level of theories for achieving a reasonable accuracy. And what we do with these datasets, what we have done with these datasets is train this universal model for atoms, which takes in this diverse like 5 datasets as input, and we are predicting the energy, forces, and stresses. And these models can also be used for many different applications that we have used computational chemistry tools for so far. And this model is about, as I mentioned before, it's about like 10,000 or like even much more faster than that as compared to DFT calculations. This is all open source. So the goal for today is to walk you through what we have developed as a tool so that you can use it for your research if you're interested. So before we go into that, this is the model architecture for the universal model of atoms. The input task, there are 5 different tasks depending on what kind of system you have, whether you have a molecule, you have a molecular crystal, a material system, a metal organic framework, or a catalysis. You can get node embeddings. We are using graph neural networks as our architecture. So we use these as inputs, we pass them through the network, and the final output that we get is the energy, force, and stress, depending on what models we are using. So we start with the input structure, and finally, in this specific architecture, we are using a mixture of linear experts. Because it is a large data set, we are using this mixture of linear experts to handle the model capacity, because when we use a large data set, your model also increases in size. So this mixture of linear experts is a way of managing the model capacity without making the model training too expensive. And in the end, it predicts the energy, forces, and stresses. And using this model, you can also derive other properties. For example, you can do a phonon calculation, or you can run an MD simulation using this model. So essentially, this is a DFT surrogate. And this is here I'm showing the architecture of what this model looks like. Are there any questions so far? All right. So here is a brief preview of how the model performs across different tasks. So different tasks, as I mentioned before, are these 5 different kinds of systems or chemical systems. And you can see the performance of our multitask Mole model as compared to a single task or multitask model. And it does significantly better as compared to some of the previous models we have trained, because we have a diverse set of data. So that's why this model is doing really well. Uh, based on this model, we have developed this demo on Hugging Face. So you can access the model on Hugging Face. If you can go back to the link that I shared before, have people been able to open that link, the GitHub website? Okay. So if you go back here, there is the link of UMA demo that takes you to the Hugging Face website, and it tells you about this, like what the model is, if you can trust the results, why does it matter. It has all the information, and you can play around this model by yourself. So just to try an example, there are some already preloaded examples here. For example, a transition metal complex or an inorganic crystal. So you can click on one of these. Are people able to access this Hugging Face demo? Yeah, sure. So I opened this link first, which is the link I shared in the beginning. And then on the left-hand side, you have a link for the UMA demo, which is this. Yeah. Oh, okay. Is it like the, oh, it's just the, I think the light version and dark version. Oh, okay. So if you just try, if you want to try an example, you can load a transition metal complex or like an inorganic crystal. Let's say it's already loaded. So this is the format of input as ZIP file. You can also load a traj file or XYZ file, anything that works with DFT. So like I've loaded a ZIP file here. I can visualize it from here. And then depending on what kind of material I have or what kind of system I have, I can select a task. So let's say you have interesting applications for molecules, you can select OMOL. If you're working with molecular crystals, you can select OMC and so on. So in this case, because I have an inorganic crystal, I can select OMAT, which is my task name, and then I can run different simulations. So I can either run a molecular dynamic simulation or relax this. So for relaxation, I can choose the number of steps. So relaxations is essentially we are simulating the atoms to find the ground state that it is going to prefer. And I can set my force, whatever force threshold I want my relaxation to reach, and I can run this optimization. So if you just click it, and then you go up here, you can see the log. So this is how the relaxation is run here, and it uses this LBFGS algorithm to relax the atoms. And what this essentially is doing is it's running a DFT calculation using the UMA model as a surrogate model, and it's doing a relaxation. So at the end of this, you can find the final atom's position as well as like what the final energy and forces will be on it. And it can also give you a very nice script here. So it's an automated script. It tells you what has been exactly run. And you can also do this on your Python script or a Jupyter notebook if you want to, if you have access to the model. So the next thing I'm going to show is, so there is another tab here from where you can explore UMA's capabilities. So there are different kinds of systems or examples that are loaded here. For example, we have these molecular dynamics examples. So let's run this high entropy alloy. I choose high entropy alloy. And when I choose this, it gets loaded here. So you can see it is a very complex system. And I can run it with OMAT because it is an inorganic material. And I can select what ensemble, thermodynamic ensemble I want to use and these different steps, and also run this MD simulation. And then again, it's going to take some time to finish because it's an MD simulation, but it will load the results here in the log tab. And also you can see the visualization of your MD simulation. Any questions so far? So while this is working, what we can do is you can open this try UMA on your own structures, and you can request for a gated model access. So if you could press this link, it opens a new tab. And you because so for you to be able to run it on your own structures, you need the access to the gated model. And I already have access to it, but if you open it, you should be able to fill out a form, and it will take a few minutes for you to get access to it. So if you can do that, that would be great. And then we can try it on some of your examples if you have any CIF files or trash files on which you would want to run your examples, run your calculation. While we are waiting for this, I see Zach is online. Zach, do you have any comments or anything else you want to say?
No, I think you covered it really well. It should take maybe 5 minutes or 8 minutes or so for the gated access when you do it. Just make sure that you fill out your whole institution name. So if you're at MIT, say Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If you're at UC Berkeley, say University of California, Berkeley. Don't just put UC Berkeley. That's one of the questions we get pretty frequently.
Thanks, Zach. Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So if you want to like refine the model or something, are you able to do that with it?
Um, so like if you want to fine tune the model, uh, so for fine tuning, I think we don't have the interface yet for fine tuning. We can use the model, like once you have the access to the checkpoint for the model, you can fine tune it, but it cannot be done through this Hugging Face demo. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, we don't have it in the demo. That takes a bunch of GPUs, and there's really not many GPUs backing this demo right now.
Yeah.
If you look in the GitHub repo, there is a pull request right now that adds the fine-tuning interface and a set of examples to the documentation. We're just trying to polish that up just to make sure it's really easy to use, but the code is all there so you can play around with it. And if any of you have a chance to try it and have any feedback, we'd love to get your comments on the PR. I think it's pretty close, so it should land in the next week or two.
Yeah, so we do have a PR for fine tuning, and there are some templates there. And even I have been working on fine tuning. So if anyone is interested, it's fairly straightforward to train this, like take this existing model and fine tune it on the properties that you're interested in. So if anyone is interested in learning more about this, how this works, feel free to reach out. And also you can check the PR, the open PR. All right. So I think what I can do is, so we can see the MD run, which was running. There is a log here, and let me see, there is also a visualization. So it looks really cool. So you can simultaneously run your calculation, and you also get the visualization and the script to debug it if you want to. So that's really cool. And the next thing I'm going to show you is trying Yuma on your own structures. And for this, we sign into our Hugging Face account. So I'm signed into mine. If you haven't, does everyone have a Hugging Face account? So you need to open your so before requesting access for the model, you need to open your Hugging Face account, and then you can go to that link that I mentioned earlier to get access to the model. And once you have that, what we can do is I can drop any file here. So I'll just upload this CIF file. This is a MOF, as you see. So this is a metal organic framework. I've loaded it, and then I can go to the task name, which will be ODAC here, open DAC, and I will run a relaxation on this. So I choose the maximum number of steps as 300. This is the optimization threshold, and I run the optimization. There is also an option of relaxing your unit cell. And we have seen that these models do really well for these kinds of tasks. So we can see what the result is. So there are only 2 steps in optimization. The script is here and the visualization is here. So this gives me the relaxed positions for my system. Yeah. That's a great question. So the question is, like when our models are trained, or when we are getting the predictions from our model, we predict the energy and forces. There is a relationship between energy and forces, and the question is if we have that constraint in our models. So we have trained 2 kinds of models. One is direct force prediction, and the other is conserving. So in the case of direct force prediction, you are directly training on energy and force labels. In case of conserving models, here we have the small model. So we release 3 different models: small, medium, and large. And for our small and medium, we do have conserving forces. So there are models where you get energy and forces which are related to the energy.
One quick comment on that.
Yeah.
Most of the models that our team released in the past were direct force prediction because those are quite a bit faster. For those who are following along in the community, some of the other popular models right now, like the ORB models, have also made that choice. we actually found it also really helpful to have that option because even the small model that we're showing here, it was pre-trained with direct force where everything is super fast and it really flies along and it makes the training much easier. And then we fine tune it at the end to add the conservation back in and make sure that the energy works well. And so there's been a really interesting back and forth in the community on what the right strategy there is. But the one that we released actually used both during the training. There's a pre-training with direct and then conserving fine tuning.
So the follow-up question is, how is the constraint enforced? Is there a law, like additional term in the loss function? So what we do in our model is the forces are the derivatives of energy with respect to the atomic position. So there is a back propagation step involved using AutoGrad that gets us the forces as compared to the energy, and then that gets added in the model training. All right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question. Again, it is trained on different kinds of systems, like diverse systems, and these different systems have different levels of theory based on what accuracy you want. So that's why, like, for example, if you're looking at OML, in OML, we also have input, like that is the labels that we had for OML are coming from hybrid functional, from ORCA, calculations done in ORCA, and they have some input like charge and spin, which are not present in the other systems. So if you want to reach that level of accuracy using this model, you need to specify the task type. So prior to running these simulations, you need to know what kind of material or like what system you're using and what is its type. So yeah, if you go to OML here, I think, yeah, so this gives you an option of adding the charge and spin multiplicity. So we need to know what charge the systems should have or what spin multiplicity the system is supposed to have. And I think you can also set the default to 0 if you don't know what it's supposed to have, but it will be more accurate if you know prior to running simulation what charge and spin the system should have. Yeah. That's a great question. I forgot to repeat the previous question, but yeah. Can you just repeat your question again? Or
Standard data sets or something? Oh,
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
yeah,
sorry.
I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm asking about like how does it work for like when you don't have just like crystal system information, rather you want to model like some sort of phenomena, like you have a phase transformation, so you want to construct like an interface and you want to see like the relaxation there,
Yeah.
and then you have not just like a few atoms, rather like thousands of atoms there, something like that.
So should I repeat this question? Okay, all right. Okay, so if you can use these models on a system that have large number of atoms, we are also trying to like really expand it to or parallelize it to be able to use it for a very large system. But for thousands of atoms, you should be able to run this. So that's the first point. And the other thing, the next question about phase transformations or like different systems that have interfaces. So we do have surfaces. Like if you go to our look at our OC20 work, that involves some surfaces, and then open materials that involves some materials with different kinds of intricacies in them. So you can try using our models. I would suggest validating the models against DFT to make like even we have tried it for systems like high entropy alloys, but it will be great if you can validate, like if you can try running these models on the systems that you mentioned and validate it with DFT. So we don't know yet how well they do, but if you can do that, that's great.
So there is a way like here to scale things. Like for example, like most of the runs we perform at like high performance computing using and then we can take input from here, or how do you plan it?
You can run this on your high performance computing, like on your cluster. So you just need to clone, like when you're running a DFT calculation, if you're running it through Python, if you've used ASE like interface, you would need to use the path to the executable for your DFT calculation. So in this case, instead of that DFT step, you're giving it the path to the checkpoint or the model. And that is being used as a DFT surrogate. So you can run it on a CPU or a GPU, how many number of resources you want it to run for. Yeah.
Yes,
So you
thank-
just need the input structure similar to DFT. You can use a POSCAR file or a TRAJ file as an input and then run it through, follow along the code with the code, and you can, yeah. I can actually show it. So I do have
Thanks.
we do have this tutorial. So like you can run the Hugging Face demo if you have the input file and you don't want to write code, so you can just run it directly from Hugging Face, or you can go through this tutorial with me, and I'll show you how to run this through a Python script or a Jupyter notebook. So let me. So if you have loaded the GitHub code spaces, you can open it in a Jupyter lab. I think it will take some time, but you can also access the tutorials from here. So this is the first link that I shared, and you can go to Yuma tutorials on the left, and the Yuma intro tutorials. Before you start your installation, you need to access your Hugging Face token. So when you have the Hugging Face account, you can also create a token using this link. So I can show you. You can just create a new token. It can be named anything, and we provided read access to contents of all public gated repos you can access. So you need to select that option and create token. That gives you a token, and I can load that. Right. Okay, so looks like I'm not able to connect to my code space, but I will walk you through this. Yeah, the notebook. But for
That's UMA intro tutorial. Is that the one?
this one. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yuma intro
Yeah.
tutorial.
So people can also copy this and run it at Nurse,
Yeah.
for example.
So like if you have the code space started, for some reason mine is not working, but you can go to our GitHub repository, go to code and start the GitHub code spaces from here. And then once the code space is there, you can open it in the Jupyter lab. So it will let you run the code simultaneously. What I'm going to do now is, because my code space is not working, I can walk you through this Yuma intro tutorial. And if you have it open on your laptop, you can run it. So before any installation, we request for our token. Once we have the token, we can either enter the token using Hugging Face command line interface, Hugging Face CLI, by typing this in our terminal, or we can also import the OS and set the environment variable as the token here. So just you can copy the string to your token here. And then you have to run these few things, which is the installation process that installs all the necessary packages required to run or use our model. So there are some illustrative examples here that you can run, and it shows you some basic uses of our model. So this is how we are, you will have access to the Yuma small model, so Yuma small 1. And this is how we set the predictor. So this predictor is our calculator. If you want to compare, like have an analogy with a DFT, this is our calculator, which is called predictor here. It will give, if you're running it right now, it will show you this warning because we are not using any GPUs. It's been run in CPU. But you can also, if you have access to GPUs, you can also run it on GPUs using your Jupyter notebook or Python code. Any questions so far, or has anyone been able to open this? All right. So, are any of the people familiar here with ASE? Or like ASE is basically used to create different kinds of systems. So here we are using ASE, which is pre-installed in this environment, and we are using ASE to import a molecule. So this is a singlet and a triplet CH2. And what we are trying to compute is the spin gap energy. And this is an OMOL task because we are using a molecule here. So it's a CH2 radical, and it has two states. One is the triplet state and one is the singlet state, depending on the electronic configuration of this radical. So when you run it the first time, it downloads a 1 GB checkpoint. So it might take some time, but after that, once it is loaded, it will be faster to run it. Let me check if okay, so looks like it's working now, my Jupyter notebook, but it might still take some time to run. Okay, so here what we are doing is we build the molecule, we update its info. So as an input, we give it, because it's an OMOL task, we give it spin and charge. The spin is 1 because it's a singlet state, and when we go to triplet state, the spin is 3. And then using the FairChem calculator, which is similar to any DFT calculator, you can set the predictor here, give it the task name as an input. So that is very important to specify the task name. We set the calculator, and when this calculator is set like this, and then you can do dot get potential energy. So that gives you the ground state energy of this system from our calculator. And this is the energy difference between the triplet and singlet potential energy. Another example is like related to OC20 or catalysis. So calculating adsorbate relaxation. So when we look at adsorption systems, it's usually a molecule that is adsorbed on a slab system for which we calculate the adsorption energy. So in this case, we have an example of a copper 100 slab with a CO on it, carbon monoxide, and we want to relax it. So this is an OC20 task because in OC20, we have structures that have these surfaces with molecules adsorbed on top of it. And what we want out of it is the adsorption energy. When the molecule adsorbs on it, how much energy is involved in that adsorption process. So any questions so far? All right. So here we are setting up our system as an ASE atoms object. So here is a slab. You can decide how much size you want the slab to be of. It's a copper 100 FCC slab, and it has these specifications. It is also periodic. So this is also important. So right now you have to set periodic equals true to be able to use these models. So make sure you do that when you're doing these slab calculations. Then we define the adsorbate, we add the adsorbate on top of this slab, and then set our calculator and run an optimization. So what this does is it's moving the atoms in the system to find the final ground state where the atoms are most relaxed and you get the potential energy of this system. So this is an OC20 task. Yeah. Sorry, could you repeat the second part of your?
Vacuum gap between the two slabs.
You can.
Can
say-
you tell me how do you set the vacuum gap?
Yeah, so we have the vacuum set using the ASE here because this is an ASE atoms object. When you define a system, you use an ASE atoms object, so you can set a vacuum here. So it gives you an option of setting the vacuum. And to know what vacuum is most accurate for your system, you can do a convergence test on different lengths of vacuum, and based on that, you can select where the system, like if you repeat the cell, there should be sufficient vacuum so that the repeated structures are not interacting with each other. So you can do that to select the value and then input it like this in your ASE atoms object.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So yeah, this tutorial gives you all these examples for different tasks. So now there is another example for bulk relaxation, which is an OMAD task. So we have set the task name as OMAD. Again, the process is same. You can also get the stress. So along with energy and forces, you also get the stress as an input. So that is also another feature of these newly released models. And in this case, we are using a fire optimizer. So you can also select what optimizer you want to run for your relaxation while using these models. And this is how the output should look like. And then here is an example of a molecular dynamics simulation. So this is for the OMOL task. Here we have defined the thermostat, and we set the calculator. And again, it's similar to the previous examples that I showed. You define the calculator, you set the task, and you can run this cell to find some results for molecular dynamic simulations. And yeah, this is the expected outcome from this. So the previous example for catalysis was just the relaxed energy of the cell. There is also an example here for catalyst adsorption energies, which is slightly more involved, because when you do adsorption energy, you need the total energy of the adsorbate on slab, then just the energy of the slab and the energy of the adsorbate. And you need to make sure that when you're computing a relative energy or relative property, every energy that we have computed should be consistent with what task we are using. So it's not like we can use OC20 for adsorbate, OC20 for slab calculation and OMOL for adsorbate. That is not correct because we are using different levels of theory. So we need to make sure that everything is consistent. In this example, we have shown how you can compute the adsorption energy. So we already have we provided some reference energies for different elements that can be present in the molecules. So that can be used to compute the adsorption energies if you're using OC20 as a task. Or what you can do is you can also run, you can also estimate the energy of oxygen from DFT. Just make sure that you're using consistent settings when you're setting your task. As mentioned here. So here are the atomic reference energies to be able to compute the energy of the molecule that is involved in your adsorption. So yeah, that's about it for this tutorial. There are some more involved examples if you scroll below and if you're interested in those kinds of simulations. For example, you can run transition state or NEP calculations. There is an example for alloy formation energies. So if you scroll below, you can also do phonon calculation using this. So yeah, transition states, NEP calculation for catalysis. And yeah, if there are any questions, I think in the interest of time, I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, that's all.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, so since we have the next talk straight after, we probably only have time for one question, but I think Jagriti is also going to be around at lunch. So if this is your particular area, you might want to catch her at lunch. So she'll be there. But we can take a couple of questions if there is one now. I'm going to put you off.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So I think some people might be interested in this mixture of experts architecture that you use to kind of get generalization across lots of molecules. So how did you design that architecture? What advantages do you see? That might be useful. Yeah.
Yeah, so the details of the architecture are there in the paper. Zach might know more about this, but the code is open source and the details are also there. So yeah, like there were some empirical scaling laws which were developed by the team that helped them scale this model to a larger data set. So yeah, if people are interested, they can follow along with that paper. Zach, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, a couple of the sort of empirical choices that went in. We wanted a model that could have hundreds of millions of parameters, but still be fast at inference time. So that's a nice feature. Mixture of experts is that once you fuse it down, The model that's actually running for inference is only about 6 million for the small model, even though it has about 200 million free parameters. So that helps keep it snappy in these demos. Another choice that we made was we wanted whatever went into the router, into the mixture of experts decision. We wanted that to remain relatively constant over the course of a simulation. So for example, if you look at this, we want the overall composition of the box, which unless you're doing Grand Canonical, Monte Carlo or something, should remain constant in an MD simulation. And maybe the total charge and spin multiplicity to be in there. And so again, what that means is that we can do a single merge at the beginning of the simulation if we're running MD. And then afterwards, we can take that 6 million parameter model and just use it over and over and over again, which keeps everything really fast. But there were tons of things that we tried. This is the one that we found worked the best, but there's a million decisions that we could have done differently here. If you look at the language and vision communities, there's also similar things that have been tried there. So I would say this is not like wildly creative or outside of the box. This has worked in other areas, but I'm sure other things would have worked as well. A lot of things we tried did not work, for whatever that's worth too.
Yeah, I think that's one kind of gap in our lectures in mixture of experts, really, which is actually probably, yeah, for next year. So you have to come back. Okay. Any other quick questions? Okay. So we're
Oh,
done again. Oh,
I think there's.
okay. Okay.
Can you do X-ray spectroscopy simulation using the tools, or do you have any data sets for that?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
X-ray spectroscopy simulation. Do you have any data sets for that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's thank Jagriti again. And as I said,
Thank
she's
you.
around at lunch. So thanks as well, Zach, for joining remotely through your sick bed. Thanks for